Okay, good morning everybody, and good morning to everybody that is watching this on replay. Before we get started, I would like to do a quick poll. How often are you working overtime at the moment? Brilliant. We've got a couple of people that manage within your own hours. Fantastic. Some are working a few of you are working overtime every day, and some take home work to finish most days. Okay. Oh, sorry, I should share those results. There we go. Okay, so the majority of you are every day or most days. So well done for the people that managed within your own hours. That's fantastic, but unfortunately you're in the minority on this one. Okay. So, and that's what I'm finding, particularly with COVID. Most people and most leaders in particular are busier than ever. They're juggling their normal workloads as well as all of these extra tasks and extra support and care that's needed because of the craziness that we've been going through over the last few months. And particularly as leaders, we often tend to be the go-to people. So are you the one that gets all the stuff done? You're known as that go-to person everyone goes to for help. You say yes to everything because you love to support people. If you're doing that by saying yes to other people, you're actually saying no to yourself and no to your future vision, because you're working on everyone else's tasks instead of what's important to you. And what's the answer? You put your head down further, you work harder for longer, more of those overtimes. When we're busy, we end up in a hole. And when we're in that hole, we're just constantly digging, and our workload gets bigger, our hole gets bigger. So we're getting deeper into that hole instead of working on the ladder that can get us out. And what you need to do is stop digging. So that's what I work with. Some of my clients have saved themselves 2 to 4 hours every single day so that they can focus on their value add activity and get their personal lives back. Because when we get them out of that hole, they can really focus on what's important. And that's what we'll talk about, some of those tips today. Many of us suffer from that Superman syndrome, that idea that we have to do everything and be everything to everybody to show that we are capable and show that we're supporting the business. But as a leader, the best and most important thing you can do is develop your team. And by delegating, that is one of the key opportunities to develop your team. My big philosophy is that we should always leave somebody in a better place than when we met them. We can always add value to them. But sometimes that isn't by doing the work for them, it's by helping them grow and develop themselves. As they say, if you give a man a fish, you feed him for a day. If you teach a man to fish, you can feed him for his life. By delegating tasks, you're developing your people, which it turns to better morale, better motivation, and improved productivity, all while helping you and your burnout out as well. So as we spoke about on day 2, we need to identify what your team members are interested in, what their career aspirations are, and give them tasks that will help them get there, that will give them that little bit of a stretch, but they can do on their own. And inspire by linking that delegation, that development opportunity to their career and to the company's bigger picture. Then be clear, give them real clarity on what the task is, what the deliverables and outcomes are, and the time frame, and then let them free. The biggest issue that many leaders face is micromanagement. And so many people leave their role because they just couldn't stand being micromanaged by their manager. So it's so important not to focus on those little details. It's okay if they don't word it in exactly the same way that you would. They might have their own little slant on how they word things, but that's okay. Let them get to the outcome in their own way. Give them the support they need, of course. Don't let them completely on their own, but don't micromanage every detail and change things for the change's sake. What you should be doing is delegating yourself out of a job. Okay, sounds a bit oxymoron, but when you start giving your tasks away, you'll find other priorities that add more value and will be able to develop your own career. One of my clients did exactly that, and it was really hard for her to let go at first. but she was getting bogged down in that day to day. And when she started giving little things to her team leaders and a little bit more of the leadership responsibility to her team leaders, she was able to start working more on strategy. And then she did that more and more. And over time, she was able to start working on cross-functional teams to add value to other parts of the business. By doing that, she has now highlighted herself as top talent for the business and has been earmarked for future senior management roles. If she'd kept doing what she was doing, she would never have gotten to that state. So if you're too busy to delegate, consider, do you want to be in the same place you are right now in a month or next year? Because if you keep doing and hoarding all that work, you're just going to be in that hole, feeling overwhelmed, getting to burnout stage. You're not developing your team. They won't be engaged, and you'll be missing opportunities for yourself. A client that I recently coached was feeling that. He was feeling overworked and overwhelmed, and his team size was increasing. And through the conversation, he's an exceptionally high performer and wants to really deliver for his customers. And so he was telling me how he had to check in on his staff to make sure that, oh, have you followed up that customer or have you gotten back to them on that? It's like, okay, why are you doing that? If you didn't do that, what would happen? And he was worried that they might miss something, but by doing what he was doing, following them up all the time, he was effectively managing their to-do list as well as his own. So what he decided to do was to set the expectation that he was not going to check up on them anymore. It was their responsibility to follow up their own customers. And he was going to let them fail. As long as it wasn't a significant issue and a critical project that they were working on, he was going to let them miss a couple of things, because those failures, those pieces where they might have missed something, are actually a learning opportunity. It will make them realize that, yes, they do need to manage their time and manage their own to-do list more effectively. And not only that, then he gets time back in his day. As Steve Jobs says, musicians play the instruments, I play the orchestra. If you're trying to play all of the instruments, to have your hand in every pie, you're only going to burn yourself out. So let your team play to their skills. Let them play their own instruments, and you can be the conductor to make the magic happen. But you don't have to do all the work yourself. Put a yes in the comments if you agree. So Ronnie, I find that when I delegate, I often spend more time fixing and redoing as the capability is just not there. Yes, okay. So there's two factors at play there. Are you delegating within their capability? You want to give them a stretch, but you don't want to overload them to something that is too far. And then secondly, as you said, is it a little bit of perfectionism? So sometimes they might not do it exactly this or in the same wording and exactly the same way you would, but they might come up with a new idea that you hadn't thought of either. So there's a little bit of balance, and it's about trying to start small and give little things that they can do, build their confidence, and then start giving bigger and bigger tasks. Okay, great. Okay, next up is to have a plan. Who sets out their plan the day prior? Show of hands. Okay, let's see. Yes, Ronnie, great. Terry, fantastic. Okay. Wonderful. You can drastically increase your productivity just by having a plan. And I know that when we're so busy and we're working overtime, that extra 5 minutes thinking about the next day is just out the window. But by having that plan, you'll focus on what's important instead of getting distracted by lots of other little things. And for every minute that you spend planning, you'll save 10 minutes of distractions the following day. So that 5 minutes of planning will save you nearly an hour the following day. It reduces decision fatigue of what to do next. It stops you searching for things because you'll have it all planned ready to go. It helps you visualize and focus on your key goals. And it builds that dopamine that I keep mentioning, and confidence for ticking off your to-do list. So before the end of your day, pick 1 to 3 things that are key for you to achieve the following day. As Jim Collins from Good to Great says, if you have more than 3 priorities, you have none. Because too many items on your to-do list just gives you brain fog. It causes you overwhelm and your brain will freeze and you'll get even less done. If you have a long list on your to-do list, 2 key things. List out the consequences, or think about the consequences of not completing a task, and give it a rating out of 5 or 10. And of course, the ones that have the highest rating are the ones that you should be focusing on. Can the other ones be delegated or put to later in the week? Okay. So making sure you're focusing on those high consequence items. The other thing, make sure that at least one of the items on your to-do list is moving you closer to your future vision. Every day you should be doing one thing at least that moves you that step closer, even if it's a baby step, anything in that right direction. Okay, next up is multitasking. It's something that so many people still think is a required skill, and I still see it going out on job ads, but it's actually not as effective as you think. So as I said, grab that pen and paper, and when I say, I'd like you to write a sentence out. I'm going to time you on this one. Okay. Multitasking disengages my brain. Ready? Write it out now. And let me know when you've finished. Put your hand up. Great. Okay, brilliant, all done. Now what I would like you to do is write that same sentence, but there's a catch to it. For every letter of the sentence you write, you need to write a letter of the alphabet. So it will go M, A, U, B, L, C. I'm going to give you 40 seconds. So you had 10 seconds for that one, 40 seconds to do this. Ready, go. Okay, and stop. How did you find that? I'm sure, because I know from previous experience, that you wouldn't have gotten very far, or at least halfway through the session. Hard work, Terry, yes. So while that was a very simple task to show you how ineffective multitasking can be, because it changes the way you think. It's swap tasking and slowing down our brain patterns. Research has shown over and over again that swap tasking makes things 5 times as long than focusing on one task at a time. And in fact, a study in the UK even showed that a group of people that had been multitasking all day, their cognitive functioning was worse than someone that was stoned. So it's really not good for us. The reason for that is 2 things. One is called the attentional blink. The process that our brain goes through, or 4 stages our brain goes through when we have to swap from one task to another. Firstly, you reset, you drop what you're currently doing out of your short-term memory. Then you recall your the new task from your mid to long-term memory. You have to re-engage into that new task, and only when you refocus is when you start doing productive work. And so the whole process takes time and really slows you down. So basically saying you're good at multitasking is saying you're good at something that's really ineffective. The other thing is that we have two key parts of our brain, our limbic system, which is our primitive part of our brain, and then our neocortex, which is what we use for strategy and creativity and focus work. When we're multitasking, our limbic system takes over, which is where our emotions take over what we're doing. And that's why we get a bit grumpy and frustrated when we're distracted so much and trying to juggle too many tasks at once. It really lowers our strategic and creative ability and our flow. So single tasking is the key to success. It does take time and practice to get this skill, particularly in worlds where we have multitasked for so long. So start off, if you can, try and focus for 10 minutes at a time on one task. And then as you get comfortable and that's easy, then you slowly build up to, say, half an hour or even an hour. So the key thing is it's important not to overcommit to things that will take you away from those priorities, and give yourself time and space away from distractions. Setting expectations with your team that these are your focus periods and you don't want to be distracted during that time, and even remove yourself if you can book a meeting room if you're in open plan, for example. Okay, that's why being mum is exhausting. Absolutely. Yes. The amount of times I have to say, I do not have 5 hands. Let me just get this done and then I'll be with you. Yes. Okay. Time blocking is the key to eliminating multitasks. Elon Musk, Bill Gates, Cal Newport, they're all time blockers, and they're not doing it just to have a pretty color-coded calendar. It's how they can squeeze the most juice and productivity from their days. So it forces you to prioritize what you're going to focus on and when. It enables you to block out the times when you're most effective for those value-add tasks. So everybody is different. I personally have a super energetic time, focus time, very first thing in the morning, or once I send the kids to school, and then again late in the afternoon. That middle part of the day is when what I use for checking emails and doing other admin tasks. But all my focus work are those 2 blocks. We are more likely to get the job done faster if we have our deadline. So you often end up with better quality within a less amount of time if you give yourself a specific time frame to complete it. And deadlines also decrease procrastination, so you're more likely to complete that task. Some tips around time blocking. Most importantly, do not check your emails first thing. I know that can be a real challenge, and it's a big mindset shift to get yourself and your team out of. And managing expectations that I won't be seeing those emails until 10:30 in the morning, for example. But if you check your emails first thing, what you're doing is you're becoming reactive for the day, and you're doing everyone else's tasks instead of your tasks and your priorities. So allocate some time during the day for those emails, but not first thing. Always make sure you're setting some time for lunch to have that break so you can reset yourself. Have those office hours that we spoke about the other day to be able to support and answer questions from your team. Or you might just have that open space where your team can come in and set some time. And then have other blocks, maybe on a weekly basis. So I have a reading block, so an hour once a week, where I'll read all of the subscription emails and magazines and whatever else that come in, so I can keep up to date with that stuff without it taking up time every single day. That's my reading focus time. I also have a time once a week to allocate to the tasks that I don't want to get done, because we all have them. And so if we can group them into that and go, right, okay, this is that, I'm just going to churn through them, get them done out of my system. So seeing what works for you and setting up some recurring meetings and committing to those. Some of my clients have struggled at first to, they set up those times, they set up their diaries, and then it all goes out the window. They don't actually follow that plan. And remember, it takes time and energy and focus to create a new habit. So 21 days to break down those old habits that are ineffective, 30 days to get those new pathways firing, and 60 days to make them autopilot. So keep that consistent and you will get there. Cheers to that. Yes. Okay. Of course, we also need to eliminate disruptions, as they break your concentration and you end up in that attentional blink that we just spoke of earlier. So you need to create both mental and physical environments that minimize those interruptions. Some tips include turn off all notifications. So turning off the pings from your emails and your messages and whatever else it might be, so that you're not getting those constant interruptions throughout the day. You may even need to, and I had to do this to start with, to completely shut down your email when you're not working in that email's time frame, so that you're not going and checking all the time, so that you can purely focus. I can now leave my emails open, but know that they're not going to ping me, so I don't get that distraction. And I've trained myself now not to look at them constantly as well. Okay. If you're in an open plan environment or working from home, put up barriers. So physically let your team know that, hey, you might have noise cancelling headphones, even if you're not playing music, to let them know that that's when you're trying to focus, or you might need to book a meeting room. And agree on communication rules with your team and your family members, so they understand when you can or cannot be disrupted. The other one is to create a distraction list. As we're working, we often get little things pop up in our head. Oh, it's that person's birthday. I need to go and say happy birthday to them. So then you get on your phone and then you check something else, and then all of a sudden that report's gone out the window. So have yourself a list where you can jot down when things pop up in your head, jot it down so it's out of your head and you can keep focused on what you're doing. It makes a huge difference to your productivity. Melissa, shutting down email for periods, a game changer. Absolutely. That in itself, as I was saying, that 2 to 4 hours a day for a lot of my clients, shutting down emails is probably the #1 thing. So it's absolutely critical, and not checking it first thing as well. Okay. And finally, ignite your mind. Remember that dopamine hit when you get rewarded. That in itself gives you energy to push through and do more. So do a little victory dance, go for a walk, have a coffee, whatever it is to make you feel like, yes, I've done this, I'm feeling great. For every win and every little kick of dopamine, you will be more effective and more efficient in your day. Of course, also make sure you're taking breaks to recharge your mind. Don't try and keep pushing through that fog, because you'll likely make mistakes. You'll get grumpy and your quality of work just won't be there. And a big one is sleep. If you're not sleeping enough, you're not going to be effective. So you'll end up again making mistakes and spending longer to do every task, and then probably trying to fix those mistakes as well. So rather than trying to push through, and I've done it myself at times, push through and you're working till 1 o'clock in the morning, and then you're up and in the morning just feeling exhausted. Cut that habit completely. Limit it. Yes, you might have to work on adrenaline for a short period at times when there's something big happening, but even when you're doing that, limit the amount of time, get yourself some sleep. Even if you're binging on Netflix or whatever it might be, still make sure you're turning off so you can get yourself a good night's sleep. So they're my top tips for being productive, and they will get you some big hours back in your day so that you can get your personal life back and feel on top of things. Delegating and trusting, having a plan and sticking to it, focusing on one thing at a time blocking, eliminating interruptions, and igniting your mind. Does anyone have any questions on any of those? Or any other tips that they would like to share? Okay. So your challenge for day 4 is to create your plan for tomorrow. That's a simple one. Focus on those top 3 things. Identify tasks that you're currently doing that you may be able to delegate, considering what the skill of that individual is and what support they might need. So again, start small. Don't give them one of your key big projects to do, but build up that trust and confidence in them as well. And identify distractions. What's something that does distract you regularly, and how can you mitigate that? in the group, if you can commit to one big goal for the week ahead. And of course, make sure you're either emailing me your responses or commenting in the Facebook group so that you can be in the running for one of those key prizes. Okay. And tomorrow is all about making an impact as a leader. It's going to be a big one. I'm really looking forward to it. So I can't wait to see you.